Candace Owens, oh man, I was licking my chops, I guess, waiting for Candace's response. Counterpoints did a good job covering yesterday. Ben Shapiro on video calling Candace's position on Israel, quote, disgraceful. Candace now appearing with Tucker Carlson on his X show, I guess you should say, yesterday, responding directly to Ben. Here's what she had to say.
Quote, absolutely disgraceful, particularly a coworker. Seems like a pretty big step. And I really don't know the background here. What is that about?
You know, there isn't much of a background. I saw the video when everybody else saw it when I woke up.
No one warned you about it.
Nobody warned me about it. It looks like maybe he didn't know he was being recorded. It looks like it was some sort of a private event. I got no clarity on the issue that he was particularly speaking on. And in what was said, I can't respond to it beyond what he's saying because it's just ad hominem attacks. I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not, we disagree or I don't think she's correct or maybe she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, exactly. And so I can't respond to it on a level of intellect because there's nothing that he has expressed in that, at least in that short clip, that he fundamentally disagrees with in terms of what I said. But I will say that I'm not going to respond with the same ad hominem attacks. Yes. I don't think it helps further discussion. And if that was me, that was caught on a video saying that about colleagues that I work with, I would be embarrassed. So I think that the video speaks more to Ben's character than it speaks to mine.
Has he texted you to apologize or explain or anything?
No. What tends to happen is, of course, we all have elements of selfishness within us. And so when it particularly pertains to an issue that impacts you, I was strongly speaking out against Black Lives Matter as an organization very early on as a conservative because I understood what the implications were going to be of defunding the police.
Right.
It was an issue that was important to me. I created an entire documentary to talk about this issue.
Yes.
And I held on for a long time and people began to see that actually I was telling the truth. And now we have more death in inner city communities than we had before.
Yes.
These riots and these George Floyd protests calling for defunding of the police. And I think in terms of this, that's what's also happened is that people that are pro-Israel are pro-Israel, a lot of them, because they have family members in Israel.
I get it.
They have homes in Israel.
Yes.
And so they feel very attached to this issue. And, I was very happy to host somebody who was pro-Israel. He's a pro-Israel comedian on my show the other day. And I explained this to him. I said, you are demanding that we have this same response that you are having about what people are saying on college campuses. The rhetoric on college campuses hasn't changed. Did you not remember what they were saying, what professors were saying? The anti-white explicit racism that was happening and not even just allowed in terms of student protests, but was written into the curriculum.
So I actually think that was very illuminating. She called out Ben also on Twitter. Actually, well, I guess it depends. Who do you think struck first? I'm going to say Ben struck first. Candace then responded where she put out, I think it was a quote from scripture, where she talked about like, blessed be the peacekeepers, because that's really, she's had a different view of all of this. Let's put that up there on the screen. That was her initial response that came after the video that came out. She says, you cannot serve both God and money. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Now let's put the response, please, up there on the screen. Ben Shapiro, then last night, shortly before the Tucker Carlson clip debuted, says, Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means, quit. And then, let's put this up there, she went ahead and responded, and she says, you are utterly out of line for suggesting I cannot quote biblical scripture. The Bible is not about you. Mm-hmm. She also, Krystal, responded to Shapiro, where she said that his behavior had been unhinged and unprofessional over the last few weeks, and that the rest of the Daily Wire crew all had to grapple with that. So I'll just put my allegiances and make them very clear. I'm Team Candace here for a variety of reasons. Number one is Shapiro owns was a portion of the Daily Wire. You cannot trash your employee or somebody who works for you publicly and then expect to have a civil working relationship. That's an insane thing to do. Mm-hmm. If you don't want her to say that and you think it's quote unquote disgraceful, then fire her or shut up because you are the co-owner of this company and you know that you're on video. I think he knew that he was being recorded when all of that happened. And then second, why are we then dragging things out onto Twitter? Pick up the phone, man. Have a text with something, between people. You cannot be hashing out this back and forth nonsense all in public. So there's a variety of things. This is all even post the actual view of the conflict where I'm far, far more aligned. I'm probably the most aligned with Candace of any of the Republican commentators out there than anybody else. And it's crazy that that's somehow like out of bounds or anathema over at the Daily Wire. So there's a free speech hypocrisy.
Oh,
There's a
yeah.
basic like managerial issue here that I really find troubling. You and I, we have people who work for us. Like, you can't treat people like that who work for you. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
there's a variety of issues that are happening here of unprofessionalism and on the content side that I'm pretty annoyed by.
Well, and Candace has said all kinds of wild and controversial things
Right.
in the past.
And that's fine.
That was fine.
Right.
That didn't cause this
Exactly.
rift. And it's only when she criticizes Israel, which has been clearly like very personal for him. And look, I understand that
Of course,
in terms of like
right.
his identity, although, he also claims he doesn't care about identity politics, put that one aside. But that's the line. And I think in particular, one of the things that I zeroed in on is there's all this safetyism language coming from the right around quote unquote anti-Semitism. Well, what they really are objecting to is any sort of criticism of Israel, which is not anti-Semitism. Now, I'm not saying there's no anti-Semitic rhetoric out there associated with, critique of Israel. Of course there is. But where they really draw the line is any kind of critique of the state of Israel. And the reason why it comes out really clearly here is you'll recall, Saagar, Candace had this line about Hitler that was roundly condemned previously. She said if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. When asked about the word nationalism, she went on to say the problem is he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German. There was apparently no issue with that comment and the potentially anti-Semitic connotations of it. It's only when there's a criticism of Israel that the line is really drawn. And we've seen that with a lot of the, just staunchly pro-Israel parts of the Republican Party. Like, it wasn't very long ago, Donald Trump was having dinner with now avowed Nazi, Kanye West. And everyone was like, well, what are you going to do? There was some condemnation, there was some criticism, but it wasn't this hard line as when Trump got, I would say, with the right in more trouble for daring to criticize Netanyahu at the beginning of this conflict. That was more of a conflagration among the right than, actually getting together with Nick Fuentes and Kanye West at that period in time.
That's a great point.
So
Yeah.
the critique here, the care isn't really about anti-Semitism. It's trying to stop and block any sort of critique of the state of Israel, to tar anyone who has a critique of the state of Israel, of the Netanyahu government, of their policies, of the way this war is being conducted as an anti-Semite, to try to push it off the table. And that, to me, becomes very clear here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the Charlie Kirk point that she made is amazing. And the amount of hatred that he received for being like, hey, was there a stand-down order? Like, what's going on? And what's crazy to me is immediately afterwards, I saw even more pro-Israel fanatics being like, Candace is promoting the stand-down conspiracy. I'm like, well, first of all, it's only a conspiracy if it isn't very plausible. It's actually very plausible that something like that could have occurred. Now, I don't know what the evidence and all that is. You know why? Because there hasn't been an investigation or even a 9/11 commission or any of the October 7th commission, any of that, because Netanyahu doesn't want to get into any of that. I would love to know about the security failures that went into October 7th. But even then, why is it implausible and a conspiracy to suggest otherwise? Why is it crazy to ask an entirely legitimate question? And that's really what they're demanding. They're demanding complete fealty at the end of the day to a foreign government. And if you're Israeli, that's completely fine. But if you're American and you're trying to get other Americans to have that same level of fealty, now we're in a whole other realm of discourse. Now we're fulfilling the tropes of dual loyalty, of which they claimed were anti-Semitic. So you can't have it both ways. We get to say and ask questions and do whatever we want here in this country. You do what you want in yours. And yet, they're trying to have some sort of bridge between the two where they get to both claim anti-Semitism and then at the same time basically demand complete validation of the Israeli government's narrative about what's going on. So anyway, as I said, I stand with Candace 100% on this. I actually think she's been a pretty good voice for a lot of this, and it's probably mainstreaming ideas to the Daily Wire audience that they never would have heard before. So to that extent, I actually think it's important that she stay at the Daily Wire.
I haven't heard everything she says, so I'm not going to co-sign it, but I appreciate that there are some dissenting voices. I saw her critical of genocide on Twitter. I appreciate that too. But I do think it's worth pointing out I believe the Tucker interview was recorded before the latest back and forth on
Yes,
Twitter.
that's right.
So, she was responding just to Ben's leaked comments about her, positions on Israel. So I think this saga has more chapters to unfold.
Oh, absolutely. I'll enjoy it. I'll enjoy watching it.
All right, guys, we've got presidential candidate Dean Phillips standing by. Let's get to it. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.